Welcome to the Living While Loving Your Child Through Addiction podcast. Here, we focus on self care as we tend to our own lives while extending love and compassion to our kids. This podcast offers science backed skills to bring hope and healing to your entire family. Did you know that you can watch my podcasts on Spotify? They actually do video episodes on there now. And so you can watch me talk to myself as I talk about today's topic. I'm kidding, but that's how it used to feel when I first started doing solo episodes. Like I was talking just to myself. But now that I've been doing this for so many years and heard from so many of you, I literally just picture you guys in my head as I'm talking, like driving in your car or doing the dishes or running or whatever. So it doesn't feel so much that way anymore. But you can also comment on the episodes there, which I think is another neat feature that they added, and I can respond to the comments. So if you'd rather watch than listen, then check it out on Spotify. And I also want to say a big thank you to anyone who left a review on Apple Podcasts. I noticed there were a couple new episode or a couple of new reviews after the last episode, and I really want to thank you for that. It means so much to me because it really will help a parent who is overwhelmed and struggling decide that this podcast is worth listening to. I mean, you think about it. I'm one of those people who doesn't buy anything without reading the reviews first. Like that really guides me in my decision making. So you can just make that decision so much easier for a parent by leaving a review. And I found a video, it's like a minute long, where somebody explains how to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And so I'm putting that in the episode show notes, which is just where the description of the episode is. And today's episode is going to be short but powerful and, dare I say, life changing if you really start practicing this, because it had a huge impact on me when I learned this. Now, I know it can be really hard to see this when you're in the middle of struggling with your child's substance use. And, but you always have a choice, even when it doesn't feel like that. And I know most of the time it doesn't feel like you have a choice because all of the options that you have in front of you are terrible and you feel trapped by them. But the truth is that even if we don't like any of the options, even if they all suck, but we're choosing one of those options, we're still making a choice. And owning that choice matters because it restores that sense of agency that we had before we started going through our kids' substance use. And that gives us peace of mind. For the first, I don't know, 5 years of Helanna's struggle with substance use, it felt like everything was out of my control. Literally everything. That was the lens that I was looking at life through. My life felt like it was completely at the effect of her and her substance use. And that sense of helplessness just colored every area of my life, even areas where I still hadn't lost control. I just brought that feeling and that attitude into everything. And when you believe that you have no control, it just makes everything heavier, harder, darker, more overwhelming than it does when you see that you do have choices. And it wasn't just about the things that were hard. It was that without a sense of agency or a sense of control, I had no spectrum of good or bad or in between. Everything was just unbearable. And that's why this conversation about choice is so important, because seeing and owning your choices, it doesn't change the circumstance, but it changes your entire experience of living with your child's substance use. And it does help soften some of that pain. It keeps us from adding to the pain for sure. And it brings back this sense of power and control in our lives. And it also gives you clarity because you're actually acknowledging and being more intentional that you are making decisions. You start to pay more attention instead of feeling like your life is just consumed by chaos. So, when a parent thinks, I don't have a choice, what they mean is, I don't like the options that I have. And they aren't making that distinction. I know that I wasn't. But that distinction makes all the difference. So let me give you an example. Say that your adult child moved back in with you. You have a rule. They agreed not to use substances in your home. They've been living with you a couple of months and using substances the whole time. You don't want to put them out on the street. So you feel like you don't have a choice because you don't like your option, but you're choosing to let them stay in your home. Yet rehearsing this idea over and over in your head, thinking about how stuck you are, and that just creates all this resentment and feelings of powerlessness. And again, this mindset starts to bleed into all other areas of your life. So let's talk about why it feels like you don't have a choice. I mean, one thing is that our brain equates choice with that I have good options. There's at least one option that I like. That's what makes it feel more like a choice. And when all the options feel bad, our nervous system interprets that as that we are trapped rather than we're making a choice. Some of the decisions, some of the choices that we have to make are really hard. And we might not want to own responsibility for the outcome of those choices. So saying I don't have a choice creates some distance from the weight of this choice that you have to make and everything that you're going through. It helps relieve some of the sense of responsibility. And then there's also that fear and guilt and grief and overwhelm, all of those things, they cloud our thinking. But the difference between I don't like my choices and I don't have choices can get even more blurred in that clouded thinking. But we can reframe that just by acknowledging to ourselves, saying out loud that all of my options are shitty. I don't like any of them, but I am still making a choice. I am choosing the shitty option that I like my reason for choosing. And that pulls you out of that sense of helplessness and gives you that sense of agency and power back in your life. Just saying it out loud and acknowledging to yourself that you're making a choice. There's also that every choice we make has a cost and a benefit, but sometimes we freeze because we're searching for an option that has no cost, no downside. But a lot of times that option doesn't exist. So think of that. Every option every choice that we make, there's a cost and a benefit, whether we can see it or not. Think about, like, are you going to eat that delicious looking piece of cake? If you don't, there's going to be the cost of the experience of tasting the cake, but you get the benefit of eating less calories. If you say yes, there's going to be the cost of the calories and maybe even some yucky sugar feelings afterwards. But if it tastes good, you might get the benefit of how good it tastes to eat the cake. But we don't always think in such stark terms with cake the way we do with our kids. So let's go back to an example of, I don't want my child using substances in my home, but I also don't want them living on the street. If you let them stay, there's the benefit of their safety and them having a roof over their head. You know that they're housed. The cost is that now your boundary's been compromised. You might have values about a drug-free home. That's the cost. If you don't let them stay, the benefit is that you're honoring your value and your boundary. But then the cost is the heartbreak of not having them there and maybe them possibly being somewhere unsafe or unhoused. Both of these options are painful, but when you realize you're choosing your value of safety, having them in the home, over your value of abstinence in your home, then you can shift from I have no choice to I made a choice based on my values. And again, our nervous system likes recognizing that we have a choice. That gives us clarity and that sense of agency, and that can bring some peace, being able to say, I like that decision that I made because I'm prioritizing this value over the other one. Now you've got some real clarity and a way to back yourself up on the decision that you made. And it's not just the really hard gut wrenching decisions that matter. Every day is full of micro decisions that you don't even realize you're making. But if you start noticing them, you can build that choice muscle, like going to the gym, starting with the small weights, noticing, like, I'm choosing to drink water right now because I like the way my skin looks when I'm well hydrated. Or I'm choosing to wear slacks to work today, even though I want to wear my comfy pajamas because I want to honor the dress code at work and be professional. Or I'm choosing to turn left right now because it's the most direct route to my office. Like these tiny acknowledgments that that's a choice, right? It's a choice to turn left. You don't have to go left. I guess you could take enough rights until you finally got there, but that it's a choice to turn left. Acknowledging these things really adds up. Now you're being reminded constantly, I'm a person who makes choices. I am adept at decision making. And the more you practice noticing those small decisions, the easier it is for you to see your agency in those bigger choices that you make. And here's another idea that I love. It's called choice stacking. It's like habit stacking, but with choices. So think about linking together all the choices you make in a day like beads on a string. So, like, by the end of the day, you'd look back and you'd see this whole string of intentional choices that you made, even on a messy or painful day. In fact, it could be even more helpful on a messy or painful day And you had this tangible reminder that helps you see your strength and that you're an action taker, not a passive observer who all these bad things are just happening to. Another thing that makes this hard is because we are desperate for certainty. Like our human brains love certainty and we want certainty before we make a decision. So that can lead to something that I see a lot, which is parents sitting back waiting to see what their kids do before they decide what they're going to do. But when they do that, they've actually made a decision, and that decision is to put their kids in charge. But then they end up feeling resentful because they're not recognizing that they're the one that put them in charge. They just feel like they're constantly waiting and at the effect of their decisions. So you think about, a parent saying, we're just going to wait and see if he decides to go to treatment, and then we'll decide what we're going to do. That's a trap because now your child is in charge of your decisions with their decisions. You've put your boundary, your home, your peace of mind, everything in their hands. Instead, if you want to claim your agency, decide ahead of time what you're willing to do, no matter what they decide. If he goes to treatment, then we're going to do or willing to do X, Y, and Z. If he doesn't, then we're willing to do A, B, and C instead. So do you see the difference? In that first version, we've totally handed away our power, left our life on hold, waiting to see what they do, which makes the waiting even more agonizing than it would be already. But in the second scenario, a clear decision was made. You know what you're going to do either way. And that gives you that sense of power and control, helps you feel more regulated in this situation. That's what keeps you grounded in your own values instead of riding that roller coaster of their choices. So, going back to wanting certainty, we want to feel certain before we decide. But a lot of times that information doesn't come until afterwards, right? Like we decide we're certain once we find out the result of the choice that we made. And it's so important in this situation to have your own back and just remind yourself that you made the best decision that you could with the information that you had at the time. And this piece is huge because otherwise you're undermining your own decision making confidence and you end up second guessing yourself. Because if you're just going to criticize every choice that you make, it's just going to go back to what I talked about in the beginning, where you want to create that distance from your choices again. And it's going to be easy to just kind of glaze over and let all this life just start happening to you again. So it's important to, again, just repeating myself, to have your own back. You're doing the best you can with the information that you have at the time. Don't use the information that comes after the decision against you. We really need compassion for ourselves in this situation. So, also, if you wait until you're 100% certain, it's easy to get stuck. But again, if you make your decision based on your values, then that opens up more information. And even a decision that doesn't go the way that you wanted it to, and maybe you want to label it as wrong, you've created more clarity because now you know more than you did before you made the decision. And again, this is where micro decisions help so much because every time you decide which direction you're going to turn, what to eat for lunch, how to respond to a tough moment, you're teaching your brain and body that decisions are just experiments, that they're not traps. And that's how you build that muscle of seeing your choices, strengthening your confidence as you navigate the harder choices. So here's what I want you to remember: you always have a choice, even if your options suck and you don't like them. Every choice reflects a value. So if you focus on your values and you own the choice that you're making, you're going to have less regret. Those little everyday, million decisions, micro decisions that you make a day matter, right? They can help build your choice muscle. And then the last thing is that clarity comes as you make choices and move forward, not while you sit and wait to be 100% certain. Now, the agency of owning your choices, of course, does not ease all of the pain, but it makes things a lot easier. And it goes a long way in your relationship with your child, too, because you're not going to feel at the effect of them so much. You're not going to be so resentful, feeling like you are that, you're constantly waiting to see what they're going to do and your life is on hold while you wait to see what they do. No, you're going to own that you have a choice here and decide what you're going to do, what they do either way. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I don't have a choice, just pause and say, what am I choosing right now? Am I saying this just because I don't like my options? Identify those options and what values you want to follow when you decide which option you're going to choose. And that's really going to change how you experience your child's substance use. All right, I told you this was going to be short today. That's it. So, thank you for listening to the podcast today. If you're tired of feeling stuck and scared and unsure of what to do next, you can schedule a road to recovery call with me. We will explore what is possible for you and your family with support from somebody who truly understands what you're going through. You don't have to do this alone. The Road to Recovery call link is in the show notes and also on my website. Until next time, remember that taking care of yourself is not a luxury, it is a necessity. You matter too.